Alors, bonsoir tout le monde.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this regular public meeting of December 14th. And for those of you who are, I know there are thousands of you that are listening to us online. We apologize for Monday evening, but we had a power outage at City Hall. So we had to postpone the meeting to accommodate everyone. So that said,
The Dieppe reconnaît que la terre sur laquelle
the city of Dieppe recognizes that the land on which it operates is part of the unceded traditional ancestral lands of the Mi'kmaq. And then, dear colleagues, let's have the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, the courage to change things we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. So good evening once again, everyone. I call the meeting to order. We have confirmation of quorum. I think there are two people missing. Councillor Lantaigne is online, and otherwise there's 7 of us here. All right, so 1 absent, but that will not keep us from moving ahead. Conflict of interests. Does anyone have conflicts in the business that we're going to be conducting tonight? All right, well then we'll continue. Item 6, adoption of agenda. Can I have a motion to adopt the agenda? Councillor Turgeon-Roy, seconded by Councillor Brideau-Roy. No questions? Those in favor? Against? Thank you. The agenda is adopted as presented. Item 7, presentation, inquiries, and petitions. Inquiries by council members, Kodiak Regional RCMP. And here with us tonight, we have Inspector Chantal Farah. Good evening and welcome. We missed you. Thank you, Your Worship, councillors. I'm happy to be here tonight. So I prepared a report with a few investigative details of investigations that were conducted recently. And I'm also going to be talking to you about a few provincial units that have been working here with our assistance. So we have police on Regis Street in Dieppe gathering donations for Second Mile. And we draw a lot of attention. I think that's why we're a good partner of the Second Mile restaurant. I think they're very happy to have us there for that reason. So people can give monetary donations or non-perishable items. And we were also on Von Harvey earlier this week and at another location, and people were very happy. In terms of crime reduction, our team works a lot with the Provincial Crime Reduction Unit, which is working hard on people who have a negative impact on our communities. So there was and these efforts are having a positive impact on the safety of our residents here in Dieppe. So I have a few details that I want to share with you. So 2 men and 2 women were charged recently as part of a drug matter in Moncton. In November 2022, the Provincial Crime Reduction Unit began an investigation in the Greater Moncton area. That investigation led them to make 2 arrests in June 2023, followed by 3 search warrants with the CRU from Kodiak and with the assistance of police dogs. So they searched a residence on Murphy Avenue and one in Dieppe, and then another on a business in Irishtown. A 22-year-old woman was arrested. Thanks to the searches, police seized or confiscated a number of drugs, Shady 8 drugs and drug paraphernalia, as well as cash and electronic items. And now a number of people are facing charges in relation to those seizures. So our crime reduction unit aims to interrupt or there's no line of jurisdiction, and that's why it's important that we have partnerships and that we work together. So if you want more details on who is charged, and you can go to see the press releases on our website dated the 11th of December. In terms of general investigations, in November, the police in Dieppe were informed of a break-in. 3 people forced their way into a house on High Avenue by kicking down the door. They tried to force someone in the residence to get in a vehicle, threatening them with their weapon. And another person who was in the residence at the time also underwent minor injuries. The victim was able to escape and by jumping from the car. On November 29th, the RCMP found the vehicle in question, parked on Parker Street in Scoudouc, and so the crime reduction unit and the tactical group and various other parties went to the scene. A warrant was executed, and they seized a number of weapons that were being stored as in addition to other items. A 20-year-old, a 51-year-old, and a 48-year-old were arrested, and a 35-year-old woman was also arrested. The 52-year-old man and 3 of the individuals were released, and they will appear at a later date. On November 30, another person from Scoudouc, or 2 people from Scoudouc rather, appeared in the provincial court here in Moncton, and they are facing related charges. And those individuals remain in detention, and their next appearance in court is December 18th. On another matter that involves the region, on November 22nd, we sent out a release that 2 people from Côte d'Ivoire in Africa were charged with online exploitation. The file began in March 2023 after we received information from a police force in Quebec. With their information, we were able to execute 2 search warrants in Moncton, one in Moncton and one in Dieppe. And during the searches, police seized a number of electronic devices. A 27-year-old, a 26-year-old, and a woman of 23 years, all from Côte d'Ivoire, were arrested. The 3 were then released on promise to appear at a later date. On August 31st, 2 individuals appeared in provincial court in Moncton, and they were charged with possession of criminally obtained items, and they were released on strict conditions. During the investigation, however, it was determined that Jean-Michel Alex Gouin and Petit Goup, the other individual, had received money from a number of victims over a certain period of time. And those individuals had been extorted and threatened. They were asked for money through electronic transfer. And I want to point out that there were 2 address, axelgouin12@gmail.com, axelubizu2225@gmail.com were used. So for the time being, all the victims that were identified come from Quebec, but the police continue their search to see if there were other victims. So if someone is listening and you were victim of somebody writing from those emails, please contact us here at the RCMP, or if you're from another region, call your local police force because we continue to investigate. On November 22, those 2 individuals were charged and appeared in provincial court in Moncton. And there was a hearing that was adjourned till January, but the investigation is ongoing. And if you allow me, I just want to give you two. I know it's a bit long, my report tonight, but I find it's very important to talk about these cases because if we don't talk about them, people don't know how to prevent them. So yes, go ahead for sure. The other unit that I wanted to talk is the anti-exploitation, the child exploitation unit. So this group undertook an investigation after receiving a report from the National Center. On May 10th, 2022, the unit, with the help of the Kodiak RCMP, executed a search warrant in Moncton. A 27-year-old male was arrested, and police seized a number of electronic devices. The man was released, and he is to appear at a later date in court. In July 2022, an individual was charged in Moncton of possession of juvenile pornography and making such pornography available. So in November 10th, the individual, Cameron Esther Brooks, was sentenced to over 2 years, or a two-year sentence after being found guilty of the charges facing him. He was ordered to sign on to the National Registry, and he had to provide a DNA sample. So as you see, the child exploitation, internet exploitation group is working very hard to put individuals who harm children. Now, it's not always children of this area, but they can be children from anywhere in the world. And we had a similar case as well in the Riverview area. And again, it happened in March 2022, but the exploitation unit did a search warrant, and a 73-year-old individual at the time had been charged with possession of child pornography. And Terrence Stees is his name. He is now 75 years old. He was sentenced to 3.5 years of prison in a Canadian prison. And he was also ordered to sign up to the National Registry and to provide a DNA sample. So I just wanted to point these cases out because we do go after these people who are doing harm to society, whether it's from behind a computer or physical. It's just as bad. So thank you. And I can take any questions you have right now. Any questions from councillors? I don't see any. Clearly, you gave a lot of detail, but thank you very much for the information. Yeah, that's... to a presentation by the Urban Forest Research Chair, Alexandre Truchon-Savard is going to be making a presentation, and I'll just let you do it. I'll let you introduce the topic. So thank you. Thank you, Your Worship and councillors. So I just wanted to take a bit of time to present the memo that's going to be presented later in this evening. And I wanted to give the opportunity for the principal investigator to answer your questions. He's online. His name is Dr. Alain Paquette. Do you hear us? Can you hear us, Mr. Paquette? Yes. All right, perfect. So I'll just give you a bit of context for the request and what it implies. And then we'll leave a bit of time for questions for Mr. Paquette, if you have any. All right, so with a view to continuing our progress and to continue adapting our practices for better management in the face of climate change, I would like to present the idea of joining the Alliance Chair. This is a federal funding program that encourages university research in partnership with the public, private, and nonprofit sectors. And the idea is to promote concrete solutions for municipalities and different levels of government, and so government services, for example. And the goal is to promote concrete spin-offs in these sectors. The federal government, through NSERC, the national organization, boosts or provides or adds financial contributions in a 2-to-1 ratio. So we were tripling our money, if you will. So UQAM's Urban Forest Chair is led by the principal investigator, Dr. Alain Paquette. And the goals are to increase urban forest inventory capacity, to document tree establishment, their growth and survival rates, and the adaptation strategies. And to really prepare for the forest of tomorrow in an urban context. And there's also a part of mobilizing knowledge by sharing information in communities and developing best practice guidelines. So Dr. Paquette has a number of collaborators and partners to make sure that we focus on those 4 areas. And there are 18 research projects that are underway with masters or doctoral students. And we're talking here about $1.5 million in investments. And then if you want more information on the chair itself, there is the address on the screen. So here's a pictorial description. So you see the 4 focuses and then the number of people, the people who are in charge of those things. So the idea is to reduce heat islands, to increase carbon sequestration, and to help municipalities. So I became aware of Dr. Paquette's work earlier this year, and then I found that he had interesting tools that he developed with the city of, or the community of Jonquière, which is about the size of Dieppe. They developed tools to choose or to focus their tree planting efforts. So as part of our discussions over the summer, there was one of the partners for financial reasons who had to pull out of the program, but this partner continues to partner, but there's a hole in the budget basically. So NSERC asked the chair to go and get their funding elsewhere. There were communities or parts of Montreal, districts in Montreal that increased their funding. So for about $400,000, but there would be an opportunity for the city of Dieppe to join this group and to bring a different perspective compared to the bigger municipalities that are involved. So there's an opportunity for Dieppe to become a partner. There would be a contribution in kind as well of staff time, a certain number of hours each year to go over projects or to participate in various consultation exercises with the various researchers. So what are the positive spin-offs for the city? We would continue to innovate in urban forest management. Participating in this project would allow us to use decision-making tools for protecting and planting trees. It would optimize our tree planting and maintenance practices. It would help us develop management and adaptation measures to apply to our situation. And we see that the climate is evolving and events are becoming more intense. So it would also allow us to develop communication and education tools for the community, and because we'd be working with organizations that are specialized in communication in this area, and it would allow us also to create a network of collaborators. There are collaborators in Europe and in Western Canada, but there's not yet an Atlantic pull, so we could play that role. So, and we could also involve people from the University of Moncton and past partners as well. We could include them in research projects. We could also provide data ourselves. So, for example, better document the mortality causes of our trees. So we can share our data that they can include in their own research, and we might get recommendations that are adapted to our context. So that's basically what I wanted to present to you. It's not this is not a typical consultation project, but it's a project that would span 3 years. So they're asking for a contribution of $57,500 over 3 years. So it would allow us or the collaboration would also help us kind of tend to the future of our urban forest. So maybe maybe we can take questions now and if Dr. Paquette wants to add anything, that would be fine. Well, let's start with Dr. Paquette maybe first. Well, thank you for the invitation. I don't know what I can add. Alexandre did a very good presentation of my project, so thank you very much. But I'm available, and I'd be happy to answer your questions if you have any. But I find that he already provided a very complete picture. All right, any questions from councillors? Councillor Lanting. Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you for the presentation. It's a very interesting topic. I just have one question, and I'm not making a judgment here on the competency of what's being presented, but did anyone check if there are similar programs being done here with the environmental studies faculty at the University of Moncton? Did anybody check to see if there were similar programs? I can answer that question, Dr. Paquette. Yes, there are a few researchers that can, but in terms of urban forestry, there's nothing happening in New-Brunswick. The expertise we have here is mainly in large service forest planning. That doesn't mean that we couldn't develop collaborations with those researchers, but the innovation is really outside, and the expertise is outside New Brunswick, unfortunately. All right, thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Godet. Thank you, Your Worship. Just a question for, you talked about the 2-to-1 ratio, so over 3 years, we'd be considering $57,500, and would the federal government be tripling that, and would we have to submit reports? Would there be follow-up to do? Well, maybe Dr. Paquette can explain what would happen on an annual basis. There's an annual report, I believe. Well, there are 4 main objectives that were presented, and the fourth one is fundamental for NSERC as well. Mobilizing the mobilization and transfer of knowledge. So we do have to engage in transfer of knowledge and to report on a regular basis. And we also have to work in collaboration with our partners. So the city of Dieppe, and I'd be delighted to work with you, because as Alexandre has said, I don't have direct collaboration with the Atlantic provinces, but your staff, your municipal staff, would be directly involved in our work. So they would be in a privileged position to have direct access to the knowledge that we'll be developing together. But yeah, more administratively, there is a report that has to be done annually to NSERC, and if I remember correctly, meetings take place twice a year, and there are regular reports as well, other regular reports as well. Any further questions? Sorry, was that clear in terms of the financial part? Yes, that was clear. Councillor Gaudette, I don't see any other questions. So unless, Alexandre, you have something else you want to add? Well, if there's, we'll be voting on this this matter later on this evening. All right, thank you, Dr. Paquette, for participating in the presentation. And I don't want to anticipate the decision because it will be the council, but I think it bodes well. Things are positive, and I'm convinced that Alexandre will have something to tell you later. All right, next item. A presentation on the transfer of funds. Stéphane Thériault. Good evening, Your Worship, councillors. This is our last meeting of the year, and that means reserve transfers. So I have 4 slides that I presented, or that I prepared for you, that reflects we have 4 different reserve funds, and I'll explain as we go along. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate. All right. First of all, we've got the general operating reserve fund. So this is a fund that is maximized in the sense that we can only put in a certain amount. The rules, provincial rules, dictate that we can only put 5% of the previous year's budget into it. So in this case, we're talking about the 2022 budget. So 5% of last year's budget is $15 million. So we're trying to keep it topped up. So in terms of the general operating fund to transfer to general operating reserve, we're talking about $469,000. So we have the building renovation fund that's part of, and it's about $350,000, and we only used a portion of that. So we would take $260,000 and we'll put that into the reserve. For 2024, we have more than $500,000 budgeted for 2024, and the difference will come from the reserve. So that's why we're transferring this year, and we'll use it next year. Secondly, we have affordable housing. We have $250,000. We used $90,000 of that, so there's $160,000 left, and we'll do the same thing. We're going to transfer that to the reserve fund to be able to use it in the future. And then I'm proposing that we take $625,000 from the general operating reserve, and we're talking about one-off projects here that will be done we're supposed to be done in 2023. So the incentives program, for example, we paid almost $500,000 to $600,000 with a budget of $2,000. So we have a $300,000 that was overpaid. So we'll take that from the other fund. And then that means that we won't need to go into the reserves to fill the difference. So now, in terms of the second reserve fund, it's the general fixed assets. So now, the amounts here are a bit bigger, and we don't have a maximum. We can put as much money in as we want to, or as little. So it's about $28 million at the end of the year, and the $8.2 million that we're proposing to transfer is composed of or comprised of three items. So we've got capital projects, and then we have the equipment replacement program, which is the asset management program. So in those two, we have $11.5 million. That's part of our $72 million budget. And we used about $4 million of that amount, which means we'll be transferring about $7 million to the reserve. So why is it so high? It's because there's our capital projects that on Gauvin, for example, that were supposed to be done. We had $1.2 million that had been set aside for that project, but it didn't take place. So we're putting that in reserve. So for when the project takes place. Same thing for the Champlain-Acadie intersection. There was supposed to be work done that didn't take place. So we'll transfer that money to the reserve. So by adding up all those projects, that's what brings us to $8.2 million.
And thirdly, there are also some amounts that we're budgeting for in the operating budget. We're already planning on sending to the reserve. So there's about $800,000, which are surpluses from past years. So it's 8.2 million, there's 800,000. And normally the fourth amount here, it's when there are major surpluses that cannot be transferred to the general operating budget or to the reserve because it's already at the maximum. So it's transferred to this reserve instead. But in this case, as I've already mentioned, we paid cash for two of our loans. We paid out two of our loans. One was $7 million that was refinanced, and then there was another $500,000 that I was supposed to go borrow this year, but we also paid it cash. So this $2.3 million came out of the budget to go to those loans that had not been budgeted, but were funded from the surplus that we had this year in the salaries and the building permits. The second amount you see here is $354,000. That's the general from the general capital reserve to the general capital fund. Oh, I'm sorry. I just want to make sure I'm saying the right thing here. As a matter of fact, no, it's not even the right amount. Sorry. I'm going to have to do this off the cuff. The 354,000 that you see here and the 1.496 were reversed. Sorry about that. So you have it identified correctly in your documents, but it's not here on the screen. So the second amount here should be the $1.496 million that you see in your package. Now that amount is taken from the general capital reserve in order to pay for the projects that go forward, but that we haven't used transfers from the reserve. For example, construction projects that go forward, and there's always a little paragraph at the bottom that says, you know, that the contractor has to pay the contractor another $2 or $3 million. We take the money from the reserve for that, but this didn't happen this year, so we do it at the end of the year. In the $1.5 million here, for example, there are two purchases of land that the resolution didn't include a transfer from the reserve. So this is the time to do so. Now, the third amount, the $354,000, this is an amount that comes from the general capital reserve, and it goes back to the reserve. In other words, over the year, when we've come to ask you for transfers to the reserve, which were done, and the project goes forward, but there's funds that we didn't need, so we put it back in the reserve. And this is usually on one project here, the $300,000 out of 354. And it was for the sanitary services at Dover Park. We came to see you. We put the project went ahead, and we received funding from other sources that we weren't expecting. So we didn't need to use this funding, so we just put it back in the reserve. So that's what explains the $354,000 here. And then thirdly, then we have the operating reserve for water and sewer. Now this is it has a maximum of 5%, and so it's about $700,000 in total. There's $100,000 that comes from the operating that goes to the reserve, and 140,000 that goes the other way. So it's strategic. In other words, if you remember, and it's the same thing in the water and sewage, we had a surplus of about $800,000, and we used it to pay off, to pay cash, if you will, to pay off one of our loans of about $800,000. So that's fine, right? The surplus of 800,000, we pay off our loan of 800,000. But this little difference is that within the water and sewer budget, there are two different sections. There's the water section and the sewage section. The weighting of the loan was more for water than for sewers. So at the end of the year, we realized that in the sewer budget, there was a little shortfall in the water budget, a little more in the sewage budget. So we took some out of the sewage to put it in to put it into the water reserve. So it's just to make sure that both of them are in surplus situation. And the last line here is for the $89,000. As I mentioned earlier, that's for the, if there were asset management programs, they're the ones, they explain the largest amounts in the reserve. But this is, here we're talking about replacement programs. We have a budget of about $300,000. We use $200,000. We take that difference of $100,000 and we put it in the reserve. The major part of that is the operating capital. That's a budget of 1.1 million. We use 200,000 of it only. So there's $900,000 remaining that we sent to the reserve. And it's the same explanation. In other words, it's mostly because the project of Gauvin Block didn't go forward, and so that's gone into the reserve instead. And there were also surpluses from previous years that we had planned to send to the budget, to the reserve at the end of the year, and that makes this $1.245 million. And then the second amount is an amount we received, so it's a revenue. I mean, the second, I mean, it was some time ago that the second fire hall was built on Boulevard Dieppe. But when we built it, when we built the Dieppe Boulevard and the services, there was a disposition in there that saying that there was a charge zone, so that when there was development, a certain amount had to be paid to the city. So at that time, there was a new development. And so this is $106,000 came to us, and we took it and put it in the reserve. And the 89,000, that is the last figure here, that's money that we take from the reserve, the capital reserve, and we send it to the capital fund. So this is for Emmanuel project. This Emmanuel is a project that was of $1.4 million, and it cost us $1.4 million. But so far, it's all in balance. But the Emmanuel project included general funds and water and sewage. The general part cost a little more than the water and sewage. So there was we took money from the water and sewage, which led to a deficit there. So now we take money from the reserve to compensate for that. But I didn't explain it earlier, but in the general fund, there was money from this project that went to the reserve because we had a surplus. So these are the four reserve funds that you are going to be asked to authorize this evening. Thank you. Thank you for these explanations. Are there any questions? Councillor Leboutillier, my question is related to the transfers, of course, but not specifically to the presentation that we just saw. We saw that there are a number of municipalities in New-Brunswick and in Canada, St. John, Fredericton, for example, that instead of going to borrow money from the Capital Borrowing Board, they take money from the reserve and they self-finance. So my question is, I mean, I don't know, is this something that we can look at this year? Strategically speaking, this city of Dieppe, are we in a position that we can do that? What would be the advantages or the pros and the cons? Is it something that you've looked at in the past? Is it something that we could do? Because we have a total of about $37.5 million in the reserve. So that was my question. Now, because of the increase in interest rates, we're to 4.75% increase in in 16 months. So that was my question. I thought that it deserved being thought of it, rather than giving it back to the province. We could self-finance our needs and maintain some of that money here. That's a very good question, good observation. But this is something that we could do. The next borrowing period would be next fall. So that's one of the criteria that will be looked at amongst several. There are a number of factors that come into consideration. There are as many pros as cons. But if we take it from the reserve, because all of these amounts in the reserve have been identified for a very specific usage. In our case, for example, we go into the capital project reserve, which is $28 million. Out of this 28 million, there are 10 that go for the asset management program, and 14, or almost 15 million that will go to capital projects that are either underway or just postponed. So I can't really touch those 15 million. So we have about 2 million that are uncommitted that I could do. Now the 10 million of asset management, if I took it, that might take care of an immediate problem, but it would create a problem later, because later we might not have this money to manage our assets then. So we have to take all of that into consideration. Furthermore, we have to look at the cost of borrowing. But I don't know what the cost of borrowing is, but it might be 7%, more or less. But we also have funding. We get about 5% in our bank account. So the cost of borrowing is not the full 7%. It might only be 2%, the difference. So there are different factors that have to be considered. But yes, that's something that I will look at. Yes, thank you. Thank you. Any other questions? If not, thank you for your presentation, and thank you for the question. Let's move on. Questions by the vast numbers of the public here tonight. No questions, and nothing received online either? Okay. Which brings us to item number 9, the adoption of minutes. First of all, the minutes of the regular council meeting held on November 27th. Who would like to move the adoption? Thank you, Councillor Jeannin, seconded by Councillor Brideau on the question. No questions. All those in favor will signify. Opposed? And so the minutes of the regular council meeting held on November 27th are adopted. Which brings us to item number 10, for administration, public safety, policing services study report. Mr. Melançon. Thank you, Your Worship. Good evening, everyone. So with our two neighboring cities, we had asked for a policing services study. We hired the Prevail Taylor Consulting to do so. We had a meeting. It was presented to the three communities councils in early October, and then to the public by the consultants themselves. And this evening, we're here to approve the 6 recommendations contained in this study, and also to ask council that the city management work with the 2 other neighboring municipalities to develop an action plan in terms of under these 6 recommendations in this study. And we're asking the council to give direction to the city management to update the service agreement that the 3 municipalities have with the Kodiak Regional Policing Authority in order to strengthen and enhance the relationship between the CRPA and the 3 municipalities. So this will, This will help us work with the two other municipal management, and then to be able to come to agreements and then have discussions with the CRPA in terms in order to strengthen the police service agreement. So this is what comes out of the Perivale-Taylor report. Thank you. Who would like to read the resolution? Councillor Godbout. Thank you, Your Worship. That Council approve the Perivale-Taylor Consulting Regional Police Studies 6 recommendations and give direction to management to work in collaboration with the two other municipalities on an action plan to implement the recommendations starting in 2024. To give direction to city management to work in partnership with the two other municipalities to update the current Tri-Community Regional Police Service Agreement that established the Kodiak Regional Policing Authority, the CRPA, to strengthen and enhance the accountability relationship between the CRPA and the municipalities that fund the said organization, and I so move. It's been moved by Councillor Godbout, seconded by Councillor Brideau on the question. If not, I have a question. I'm sorry, I can't turn on my own light here. Okay, it's now on, yes. Thank you. Just for the benefit of my fellow councillors, you know I am the Dieppe representative on the Kodiak Regional Policing Authority for the last 14 or 15 months. So I just wanted to say a few words on this resolution, if you agree. I wanted to move this resolution, and I support it. I voted in favor. I will vote in favor. But of course, I know that the CRPA over the last few months, over the last few years, has had new members, and I consider that it has very strong members currently. There are certain issues that require its attention, but I think we're well placed to have the right people around the table, to have the right discussions to make the right decision. So I think it's a good time to develop this. There are some very delicate questions that have to be addressed, but we have the right people around the table. I think the timing is good. Secondly, in terms of this report, I wanted to explain that the report, and just a reminder, the report here was asked for by the 3 municipalities, not by the CRPA. So the authority cannot really comment on these recommendations until the municipalities have taken position and tells it what to do. Now, of course, the CRPA, when there are recommendations that are already aligned with the activities they're working on, well, they'll continue working on them, but it's found itself in a position where it needs this direction, and the timing is good once again. So that's why I wanted to explain this context as representatives of the CRPA, the Dieppe's representative on the CRPA. So I wanted to explain the why and why I'm voting in favor of this resolution. Thank you. And our CAO is part of the working group as well. Maybe you'd like to add something? I just want to confirm that the City of Riverview adopted this resolution on Monday. We were supposed to do it on Monday night as well, and we're just waiting for the Moncton's decision. So following that, we will sit down when the 3 have approved the recommendation. So I just wanted to mention that as well. Thank you. Thank you. If there are no further questions, if not, all those in favor. Oh, we've read it? Oh, we've already read it. Okay, all those in favor of the resolution, please signify by saying yes, contrary, nay. Thank you. Next item, which is community development, a grant request for a Boreal Child and Youth Expertise Center. Yeah, the next 2 are very similar. These 2 requests don't fall under the policies of the municipality. So we are aware that these are requests that are important for council. So we're recommending these financial contributions to the Boreal Child and Youth Expertise Center of an amount of $1,000 per year for 3 years, but the staff and the team at Sports and Leisure is going to develop a program to frame this kind of request. So we're just at the beginning of the thought process that's going to be had next year. This is a sector that isn't really structured in terms of its relationship with municipal services, and a number of requests are starting to come in. So to make sure that we are transparent and that we give the opportunity to all those who want to present requests, we're going to develop a program next year. But we don't want to delay these two requests, so we thought it was good to present them this evening. So for the first one, it's $10,000 to the Boreal Child and Youth Expertise. This is a regional establishment, but group, but they're located here in Dieppe. So this is what we recommend. Thank you. Who would like to read the resolution? Councillor Jeannin. Thank you, Your Worship. That Council authorize an annual contribution of $10,000 to the Boreal Child and Youth Expertise Center for a 3-year period starting in 2024, and further authorize this expenditure be defrayed from account number 1-2-20-28-2310, General Operating Budget, Funding and Grants to Organizations. And I so move. Thank you. It's been moved by Councillor Jeannin, seconded by Councillor Godette. On the question? No questions. All those in favor of the resolution will signify by saying aye. Contrary, nay. It's carried as presented. Now 10.2.2 for the Marichette Foundation. Yeah, this is for a contribution of $50,000 to create a scholarship, a bursary for young women from Dieppe. So this will be available yearly to help a young woman who wants to return to school. And we recommend it, and that we recommend that an agreement be signed with the foundation to make sure that to protect the interests of the municipality and the program be respected. So this is the recommendation for your consideration. Thank you. Who would like to read the resolution? Councillor Thibodeau. Thank you. That Council authorize a financial contribution of $50,000 to the Marichette Foundation, and further authorize this expenditure be defrayed from account number 1-2-20-28-2310, General Operating Budget, Funding and Grants to Organizations. And I so move it. Thank you. It's been moved by Councillor Thibodeau, seconded by Councillor Turgeon-Roy. On the question? Councillor Leboutillier. Thank you, Your Worship. I just have a question of clarification. I'm certainly not against it. I do support this, but this is just a single contribution once, just for 1 year. Yes, it's just a single contribution, and it's our contribution. It's a one-time contribution to this foundation. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Brideau. It was the same question? Yes, you have the same question. And just to add to that, because we hope that the bursary be available the first year, so that's why we're making a contribution, a one-time contribution. Thank you. All those, it was read. Yes, it was read. So all those in favor of the resolution will signify by saying aye. Contrary, nay. It's carried as presented. 10.3.1 fund finances, the transfer of funds. So our treasurer made the presentation already. So the next resolutions, if you agree, or if you have any questions, Mr. Thériault is here to respond, to answer them. So who would like to read the first resolution, 10.3.1? Councillor Brideau. Thank you, Your Worship. That Council authorized a transfer in the amount of $469,000 from the General Operating Fund to the General Operating Reserve Fund, and that Council authorized a transfer in the amount of $625,000 from the General Operating Reserve Fund to the General Operating Fund. And I so move, Your Worship. It's been moved by Councillor Brideau, seconded by Councillor Jeannin. On the question? No questions. All those in favor of the resolution will signify by saying aye. Contrary, nay. It's carried as presented, which brings us to 10.3.2. Councillor Brideau, or do you still have the voice? Yeah, go ahead. Thank you, Your Worship. That Council authorize a transfer in the amount of $8,197,000 from the General Operating Fund to the General Capital Reserve Fund. That Council authorize a transfer in the amount of $1,496,000 from the General Capital Reserve Fund to the General Capital Fund. And that Council authorize a transfer in the amount of $354,000 from the General Capital Fund to the General Capital Reserve Fund. And I so move. Thank you. It's been moved by Councillor Brideau, seconded by Councillor Le Boutillier on the question. No questions. All those in favor of the resolution will signify by saying aye. Contrary, nay. 10.3.2 is carried, which brings us to 10.3.3. If somebody else would like to read it, go ahead. Councillor Turgeon-Roy. Thank you, Your Worship. That Council authorize a transfer in the amount of $100,000 from the Water and Wastewater Disposal Operating Fund to the Water and Wastewater Disposal Operating Reserve Fund. That Council authorize a transfer in the amount of $140,000 from the Water and Wastewater Disposal Operating Reserve Fund to the Water and Wastewater Disposal Operating Fund. And I so move it. Thank you. It's been moved by Councillor Turgeon-Roy, seconded by Councillor Godet on the question. No questions. All those in favor of the resolutions will signify by saying aye. Contrary, nay. It's carried as presented. 10.3.4. Councillor Lantaigne. Councillor Lantaigne? Yeah, I'm here. 10.3.4. Yep, 10.3.4. Yes, yeah, I'm listening. I'm listening. You thought you'd catch me on that, right? No, I'm listening. Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah. We haven't forgotten you. That Council authorize a transfer in the amount of $1,245,000 from the Water and Wastewater Disposal Operating Fund to the Water and Wastewater Disposal Capital Reserve Fund. That Council authorize a transfer in the amount of $106,000 from the Water and Wastewater Disposal Capital Fund to the Water and Wastewater Disposal Capital Reserve Fund. And that Council authorize a transfer in the amount of $89,000 from the Water and Wastewater Disposal Capital Reserve Fund to the Water and Wastewater Disposal Capital Fund. And I so move, Your Worship. Thank you. Would somebody like to second all of these wasted waters? Councillor Brideau on the question. No questions. All those in favor of the resolution will signify by saying aye. Contrary, nay. The resolution 10.3.4 is carried as presented. 10.3.5. Commitments, various funds. Councillor Godet. Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, I have to bring out my singer's voice. That Council authorize the following commitments from the following reserve funds. General Operating Reserve Fund, account number 7-4-20-12-89 pen. Unforeseen expenses. Emergency measures, snow removal, $296,000. Affordable housing, $160,000. Asset management program, $766,000. Stabilization reserve, $250,000. 5, planning and development. Planning and development green fund, $122,000. Fire hoses, $24,000. 7, information technology, various software, $53,000. 8, facilities, Sports and sports fields, $50,000. 9, clerk's office, software maintenance, Laserfish, $42,000. 10, insurance potential claims, 25,000. 25,000. 11, tripartite program, 15,000. 12, 2021 one-time expenses. A, transportation, mobile receiver to be replaced, $28,000. B, leisure, sports hall of fame, 48,000. C, communications, downtown signage, 100,000. 13, 2023 one-time expenses. A, recreation master plan, $55,000. Planning and development, future expansion, $50,000. 1 of 2, public transit, audio and fare system, 54,000. 14, 2024 one-time expenses, administration, francophone initiative, 100,000. Market study, Dieppe market, $180,000. Administration, 2025-29 2025-2029, $50,000 strategic plan. Buildings, city hall renovations, $20,000. Dover Center demolition, $150,000. F, buildings, electric system protection, Uniplex, $30,000. G, aquatic and sports center control panel, 15-year celebration, 22,000. H, communications, various operational activities, 24,000. Strategy and collaboration, immigration, $38,000. So, J, fire department. H, heritage, women trailblazers bank project, $30,000. I, L, planning and development, future expansion, 2 of 2, $50,000. M, planning and development, urban growth strategy, $185,000. N, tourism strategy and action plan, $30,000. O, tourism 2025-2030, event attraction strategy, $40,000. And P, transportation implementation parking study, $25,000 for a total of $3,155,000.
Water and wastewater disposal operating reserve fund, account number 7-4-20-12-8930. 1, stabilization reserve, $206,000. 2, equipment program information technology, $71,000. 3, potential claims, $25,000. 4, information technology, unforeseen expenses, $11,000. 5, clerk's office, records management software, $10,000. 6, 2023 one-time expenses. A, effluent monitoring program, Transaqua, $15,000. B, new water master plan, $60,000. 7, 2024 one-time expenses. A, sewage lift stations, risk analysis, $62,000. B, sewage lift station, Gulf Street generator, $55,000. C, water meters, large meter calibration, $61,000. D, airport pumping station, pump conversion, $40,000. E, future pumping station, pre-design study, $75,000. Total, $691,000. General Capital Reserve Fund, account number 7-4-20-12-8920. 1, asset management program, $9,738,000. 2, pending capital projects, $3,859,000. 3, current capital projects, $9,260,000. 4, capital projects, 2024 financing, $4,400,000. 5, capital projects uncommitted, $806,000. Total, $28,063,000. Water and wastewater disposal capital reserve fund, account number 7-4-20-12-8940. 1, asset management program, $1,171,000. 2, pending capital projects, $758,000. 3 current capital projects, $1,730,000. 4 capital projects, 2024 financing, $1,219,000. 5 capital projects uncommitted, $857,000, total $5,735,000. So moved, Your Worship. Ah, you did it. A great job of it. Who would like to move? Seconded by, okay, on the question? No questions. Those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries as presented. The next 10.3.6 insurance renewals. So, Your Worship, here you have a recommendation to proceed with the renewal of insurance for various vehicles, building and liability insurance policy. We're recommending that to go with Gallagher Insurance for liability insurance and intact public entities. And there's a significant increase here. And just to simplify this for you, the reason for the increase is because we have a fleet that continues to grow, and we have capital projects that are growing in size. So the risk is higher. So that is what led to the increase of the premium of by about 12%. And then Southwestern Insurance Group, we're recommending that the cost would be $4,830. And then for pollution and professional environmental liability insurance, we're recommending to go to AXA XL Special Insurance Group. It's a reasonable amount to pay. And then for legal liability insurance, the cost would be $97,809. So this would be for the next 3 years. And that's the recommendation from staff and from the representatives or the people who do the research for us. All right, who would like to read the resolution? Councillor Thibodeau. Thank you, Your Worship. That Council authorize the renewal of the vehicles, buildings, and liability insurance policy, as well as the liability insurance policy for the directors and elected municipal officials with intact public entities payable to Gallagher Insurance at the cost of $561,909 for 2024. That Council authorize the renewal of the fiduciary insurance policy with Southwestern Insurance Group Limited, payable to Gallagher Insurance at the estimated cost of $4,830 for 2024. And that Council authorize the renewal of the pollution and professional environmental liability insurance policy with AXA XL Specialty Insurance Company, payable to Gallagher Insurance at the cost of $27,058 for 2024, and further authorize the renewal of the legal liability insurance policy for pollution and remediation with the said firm at the total cost of $97,809 for the 2024 to 2026 period. So moved by Councillor Thibodeau, seconded by Councillor Boutier. On the question. Councillor Godbout. I just want to clarify something. I know that the amount is $8,000 more than what was budgeted for, and there's a comment in the section that are you going to have to come back for us for those amounts, or are these amounts sufficient? Or is this resolution sufficient to approve all the amounts? It's very unlikely that we'd have to go into the reserve fund. We'll probably have a surplus, but if that does happen, I would come back at this time next year to ask for that amount if we don't have the amount in surplus funds. All right, so this resolution would not authorize you to go back into the reserve. You'd have to come back to see us. Yes, because we're not talking about a transfer from the reserves here. All right, thank you. Any further questions? Those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The motion carries as presented. 10.4.1. Environment 10.4 environmental management, 10.4.1 financial contribution, urban forest research chair. In collaboration with UQAM. So who would like to read this resolution? Councillor Godbout, please. Thank you, Your Worship. That Council authorize a financial contribution in the amount of $57,500 over a 3-year period to the Chair on the Urban Forest of Université du Québec à Montréal, and further authorize that this expenditure be defrayed from account number 1-2-20-22-2585, General Operating Budget, Environmental Service Consultation. So moved, Your Worship. Moved by Councillor Godbout, seconded by Councillor Jeannet. On the question. No questions. Those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The motion carries, or the resolution carries rather. Thank you. Item 10.5 now, urban mobility. Tender award, specialized transit services. Do you have something that you want to add? Yes. So the municipality of Dieppe has been offering this service since the year 2000. And so we're going to launch we received 3 bids in this tender. So the recommendation is to proceed with Wheels on Wheels Incorporated for a 3-year contract. It would start on April 1st next year. The amount would be $220,200 every year. And that's our recommendation. All right, who would like to read the resolution? Councillor Turgeon-Roy. Thank you, Your Worship. That Council award the contract for the specialized transit services to Wheels on Wheels Incorporated for the period from April 1st, 2024 to April 1st, 2027, following the evaluation of the bids received for tender call RFP 23-MU03, provision and operation of accessible transit services, and in line with the 2024 estimated budget of $220,200. So moved. Moved by Councillor Turgeon-Roy, seconded by Councillor Gaudette. On the question. No questions. Those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The resolution carries as presented, which brings us to item point 2, agreement extension, specialized transit services. All right, so yes, there is a transition period between January to March 31st. So the wheelchair guy agreed to extend the contract for those 3 months, and it's to allow authorities to sign an extension contract for 3 months to facilitate the transition to the new service provider. All right, thank you. Councillor Turgeon-Roy, would you read the resolution, please? That Council authorize the extension of the specialized transit services agreement with the Wheelchair Guy Incorporated until March 31st, 2024. So moved. Moved by Councillor Turgeon-Roy, seconded by Councillor Gaudette. On the question. No questions. Those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The resolution is adopted as presented. 10 point, oh, we're done with 10.5. Planning and development. 6.1, set date, public hearing. Mr. Melançon, we received a request to set a hearing date for a zoning bylaw to a CM zone to permit storage in that zone. So the public hearing is set for February 12th here at City Hall, and we're also asking for to extend to March 11th, 2024 for the project referred, to extend the deadline rather, sorry. All right, who would like to read the resolution? Councillor Lanting. Councillor Lanting, are you there? Who would like to take it? Councillor Leboutier, maybe he's having problems, technical issues there. Oh, there he is. Councillor Lanting, you're there? No? Oh, we can't hear him. All right, Councillor Leboutier. That council schedule a public hearing on February 12th, 2024 at 7 p.m. at Dieppe City Hall to hear objections pertaining to the proposed amendments to the text of zoning bylaw Z10-2021 on the commercial mixed zone in order to accommodate, under predetermined conditions, the mini storage warehouse use. That council requests the written views of the Planning Advisory Committee and extend the deadline pursuant to subsection 110.3 of the Community Planning Act to March 11th, 2024 for the project referred to above. So moved, Your Worship. Moved by Councillor Leboutier, seconded by Councillor, sorry, Brideau. Sorry, Mr. Brideau. On the question. No questions. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The resolution passes as presented.
We're now at 10.6.2, recommendation of the PAC. Yeah, we had a request to amend a tentative plan in the Domaine des Écoliers. The recommendation of the PAC is to accept this request for Unit 1, Phase 6, and this request was to reduce the lane, to shorten the lane. So once again, this is good for the environment. So it's recommended by the PAC, and this is for your consideration here this evening. Thank you. Thank you. To read the recommendation, Councillor Turgeon-Roy. That Council accept the recommendation of the Planning Advisory Committee relating to the acceptance of the tentative amending plan of the Domaine des Écoliers Subdivision, Unit 1, Phase 6, which provides for an amendment to the Elslinger Street cul-de-sac. And I move, so it's been moved by Councillor Turgeon-Roy, seconded by Councillor Godet on the question. If not, no questions. All those in favor of the resolution will signify by saying aye. Contrary, nay. It is carried. 10, which brings us to 10.6.3. 10.6.3, yes. Another PAC recommendation. Mr. Melançon? Yes. There was a request for rezoning from Global Pet Foods to allow the use of a commercial kennel. The PAC recommends, made its recommendation on this, so it's for your consideration. And also that we proceed with first and second readings if you agree. It's for your consideration. Thank you. Who would like to read it? Councillor Thibodeau? Thank you, Your Worship. That Council accept the recommendation made on November 15th, 2023 by the Planning Advisory Committee pertaining to allowing the use of a commercial kennel whose activity must be carried out solely inside the building in a business and technology park zone, IT. That council proceed with the first and second readings of bylaw Z-10 2021-10. And I so move it, Your Worship. Thank you. It's been moved by Councillor Thibodeau, seconded by Councillor Le Boutillier on the question. If there are none, all those in favor of the resolution will signify by saying aye. Contrary, nay. It's carried as presented, which brings us to 10.7. As have already been mentioned, we are going to proceed with first and second reading. No, we have 10.7 first, appointments. Yes, we do. You're right. I'm forgetting my different committees. Who would like to read the resolution? Councillor Turgeon-Roy. Thank you, Your Worship. That Council appoint Germaine Maillet as member of the Dieppe Age-Friendly Advisory Committee for a term ending on June 30th, 2024. And I so move it. Thank you. It's been moved by Councillor Turgeon-Roy, seconded by Councillor Brito on the question. Councillor Jeannin. Thank you, Your Worship. Just a question. I wonder if there are any immigrants on this committee. I think there are a greater number of immigrant families who bring their parents. So I wonder if we have an approach. Do we try and have immigrants on this committee? Well, just to clarify, Ms. Maillet is the liaison person between two different committees. That's the reason why we're appointing her to this committee. So it's just to ensure the link between the committee, the program committee and the strategy committee. But we'll look at that when it's time to renew the regular membership to make sure we have a diversity and a good representation. Yes, for future, yes. Not necessarily for this evening, no. Yeah, we'll take note. Thank you. Thank you. Any further questions? If not, all those in favor of the resolution will signify by saying aye. Contrary, nay. It's carried as presented. And we're now at 11.1 for zoning bylaw Z-10. Who would like to read who would like to do first reading by title only? Councillor Thibodeau. Thank you, Your Worship. Bylaw Z-10, 2021-10. Bylaw to amend the City of Dieppe zoning bylaw, and I so move in first reading by title only. Thank you. It's been moved by Councillor Thibodeau, seconded by Councillor Jeannin on the question. No questions. All those in favor of the resolution will signify by saying aye. Contrary, nay. The bylaw Z-10, 2021-10, a bylaw to amend the City of Dieppe zoning bylaw for the use of a kennel, commercial kennel, is read a first time and accepted, and we're going to proceed to second reading by title only once again. Thank you. Bylaw Z-10, 2021-10, a bylaw to amend the City of Dieppe zoning bylaw, and I so move it in second reading by title only. Thank you. Once again, it's the same resolution in second reading. It had been seconded by Councillor Jeannin, I believe, for first reading. All those, yes, for second reading. Any questions? If none, all those in favor of the resolution will signify by saying aye. Contrary, nay. And the resolution is carried in second reading. Item number 12, notices of motion. There are none. And now we're at number 13, inquiries and announcements by members of council. Councillor Gaudette is the first up to bat. Thank you, Your Worship. I would just like to wish a happy holiday to everybody, to all my councillors of council, to all staff of the city, to all the citizens of Dieppe. And I wish you happiness, health, and peace in the new year, 2024, because there are wars throughout the world, and we're really hoping for peace in 2024. This is what I have to say. So have a good evening. Thank you. Councillor Le Boutier. Me too. Your Worship, I'd like to wish all of our staff, our residents, our strategic partners, a happy holiday period. It's a time to rest, to enjoy the company of your family, to eat well as well, and all the best in the next year. Thank you. Councillor Jana, thank you, Your Worship. Same thing for me. I'll just happy holiday to everybody. I'll remain brief. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Brideau. Thank you, Your Worship. I just have one point I wanted to bring up this evening. We've all noticed that the Irving convenience store, the corner of Champlain Street and Acadie Street, no longer exists. It's gone. But there about 6 different people just over the last 2 days approached me to ask me if it's true that the city of Dieppe was going to build a roundabout there. No, that's a false impression. It's not going to happen. There's not going to be a roundabout. I just wanted to point it out. I just wanted to make the point there will be no turning point there, but no roundabout there. So all of my sincere wishes, best wishes for a happy holiday season for the rest of 2023, and we'll work towards 2024, and we'll see you then. Thank you. Have a good evening. Thank you. Councillor Thibodeau, like everybody else, I'd like to wish everybody a happy holiday, to our staff, members of council, and all citizens of Dieppe. Have a good evening. Councillor Turgeon-Roy, I wanted to I mentioned it Monday, but I'll do it tonight. Soccer New-Brunswick, it really stood out in Fredericton during the Soccer New-Brunswick Gala, and I'm going to read it because there's a whole list. We received the title of Player of the Year from Soccer New-Brunswick. Isabelle Doiron received the title. She's a grade 11 student at Mathieu Martin, member of the under-17 Dieppe team. Coach of the Year was awarded to Charles Tousignan, coach of the women's team under 17 that finished 6th in the Canadian Championship. And the women's under-17 team, which represented New Brunswick in the Canadian Championship, won the award of a Women's Team of the Year from Soccer New Brunswick. The men's team under 13 that was did not lose a certain match received their men's team of the year, and for the 3rd year in a row, the Dieppe Soccer Club won the prize of Club of the Year. So we really shone last Saturday at the gala. So I'd like to congratulate all of these people, all of these recipients, and take this advantage to wish everybody a happy holiday. Have a good rest as well. Thank you. Councillor Godbout. I had a few comments. I wasn't here at the last meeting, so I might have a little more to say than normally. But one thing I didn't do when the RCMP was here, but I could have, I just wanted to point out that the community policing office unit was at Antonine Maillet Street to talk about cybersecurity. And this evening we talked about the importance of protecting our youth in the community in terms of internet crime. It's very present. And we see what we have services for our teens and our youth that are very important. It's very important for us to look after the well-being of our youth. And we've seen it, but I've seen it more recently with the CRPA, the relationship between people who live with there's people who feel the effects of assaults or criminal activity. So it's very important that we talk about it, that we encourage our families to talk about it with our youth. In Dieppe, we all know that it's a wonderful place to live with our youth, but we still have to continue to offer them safety. So it's very important to have these meetings in our school. I'd like to thank the RCMP and the community policing unit that does that. And secondly, were we going to talk about the Order of New Brunswick award winners? No, I'm not stealing your thunder here. So I just wanted to point out that two of our people were amongst the five new recipients of the Order of New Brunswick. The ceremony was held on November 23rd at the residence of the Lieutenant Governor, Isabelle Mickey Alain, a neighbor of mine on my street. She's recognized for her deep engagement and commitment and her exceptional trajectory as a professional working towards the equality of women, social justice, and the Francophone and Acadian culture in New Brunswick. We also recognize Mr. Bernard Poirier from Dieppe for his enthusiasm, his devotion, and his exceptional support to cultural and community life here in New Brunswick and his contribution to the protection of the rights of Francophones. So congratulations to our two residents who are continuing to increase the reputation of our city. My next point, I had a brief question for staff. Last weekend or the week before, during the hockey tournament, there were 2 fire alarms that meant that everybody had to leave the ice. I don't know if you could give us more information on this. What can be what have we learned, and do we know the causes for this? Yes, thank you. We had 2 alarms the same day last weekend. They were false alarms. It was started by a kid. It was the firefighters came, but there were no fires. So it's a good time to practice. Anyhow, it's a great practice. Well, thank you, and thank you for the explanation. But on that, I'd just like to wish everybody a happy holiday, and to our staff, our residents, and our public. Thank you very much.
Les alarmes, ça me fait penser, est-ce
Thank
que
you. The alarms, that makes me think of something. Are you able to retrace the callers? I mean, sometimes you have a young kid that comes crying to you that admits to pulling the alarm, but you know, during tournaments and when there's a lot of people, is there a way, an electronic means of knowing who set the alarms off? Well, we know what detectors have been set off, but who started the alarm? We don't. We would need cameras but we prefer an educational approach in those types of incidents than to do policing. It'd be interesting to get statistics on that, just to see what's happening and to see if it's would be worth doing more. Because what often happens is that at one point there'll be a real fire and nobody's going to move, or we won't get moving right away. Oh, let's not. I don't want to forget Mr. Lanting. My apologies there. I was going to continue without you. Go ahead. Can you hear me now? Not very well, but my volume's not strong. No? Can you hear me now? Yes, very good. All right, sorry, I had some technical issues and I had to restart my computer. But all right, well, best for last. So nothing from me. Well, we'll see after you've spoken. I too would like to wish everyone happy holidays, to our staff, to the other councillors, and to residents of Dieppe. So take advantage of this period to spend time with your family, and best wishes for 2024. That's all for me, and have a good evening. All right, well, I had the entire list of soccer players as well, but I would like to take the opportunity to congratulate the new board of directors. And sometimes it's good to have a change. So congratulations to the new board of directors for the results that they achieved. I also want to remind everybody that City Hall on Sunday at 2 p.m. everybody's invited to come to City Hall for a small gathering to celebrate the festive season. We'll have things ready for the young kids. I think there's an honored guest, two of them. Okay, well, Santa Claus. But I mean, he's a well-known visitor, but we also will have Fidi too, who will be there, and that'll be an interesting thing for the young people. She's going to come and tell them a story. So I hope it's always a pleasure to see our residents come to City Hall. You're all invited to come. So happy holidays, everyone. It's well deserved for all staff. Again, we had an extraordinary year. I did an interview with the Times and Transcript this morning, and it was a lot longer than I thought. And it's because he kept asking me more and more questions. And he was, now, as you know, I'm not somebody who likes to talk a lot. So, but on that note, have a nice evening.